Welcome back to another episode of the MacRumors Show. I feel like it's been 1,000 years, Hartley, since we've had a guest. And obviously, it's no secret who we have on our screens blessing us on this podcast in audio form. If you're listening in the car, we have the one and only John Prosser back again for your second time, third time?
Oh, no, this is like my third time, maybe. I think, because I've gone on by myself, maybe once or twice. Plus, you guys had Sam and I on both, and that was chaos. What was called a mistake. So we're not doing that this time. Thanks
Just John today. We do miss Sam. Hope he's doing well. But we have John on today to talk about the Apple event, because Apple didn't make an event, but John did. And
I did.
He just did it for us. He's like, fine, I'll just do it myself. I've got this. And,
well, we had it planned. We had it planned where we just had alternate takes. So some of our takes said Apple just dropped invites for their event next week. Do you want to see it early? That was what we thought was going to be in it. And then they didn't do that. So we used all of our alternate takes that they didn't make an event. So we did, which kind of made it look cooler. But everyone thought that we already had like inside knowledge, that we knew there was going to be no event, because they're like, oh, if he's saying that at the beginning of the video, they must have known the whole time. No, didn't know.
That's called pre-planning.
Yeah, I thought there was an event on the 30th, because I was told there was an event on the 30th. But as everyone knows at MacRumors, if I'm told it, it's probably not happening. So
I thought there would be. I was pretty convinced there was going to be an event. Considering
something
last
weird
year
happened,
they did an event for less than this time round.
Well, I think they did an event last year just for the cool factor, just to be like the hip, cool tech company doing a spooky, fun event for the fans. I think that's mostly what it was. It was just like it was just for show. I wish they did that this year too.
So for those who didn't get a chance to watch John's video, go to the Front Page Tech YouTube channel and definitely check it out. I am very impressed by all of your Apple transitions. I mean, they're very seamless. Like they were so good. They seemed so realistic, super convincing. The birds, the birds were there. I mean, if you're listening on headphones, you just got nice little like ambiance of birds in your ears. It's
I really
great.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of work for sure.
But with that said, I'll take the first question here. Did we prefer press releases over an event, especially a nighttime primetime event? What if that was what Apple announced? Would you have rather had the week of press releases or the primetime event? We'll start with you, John, since you're our guest.
Okay. So I know that this sort of structure works best for sort of our community, I guess, the Apple community here, because we have, consecutive days to talk about this stuff and not just one event where, I mean, by the next day or the day after the next day after an event, we're no longer talking about it really. So I guess in terms of like keeping this at everyone's attention for half of a week, this was a really good idea. I more so would prefer the event. I just love the feel of like a special occasion. This makes it feel a little less special, but I think in terms of Apple, I think it was a good idea for them. I think they got more and longer press coverage. I would just rather a spooky, foggy event is all.
I certainly would have preferred an event for this than last year's event. I feel like all of these announcements, even the MacBook Pros, are a way bigger update than last year. The iMac, way bigger than last year. But I do also feel like giving one whole day per device in the community has led to more of a deep dive and just a little bit more breathing space, not just from our perspectives covering it and trying to dig into the detail, but I also think for slightly more average consumers, having one day to think, okay, the new Mac Mini is cool. The next day, the new MacBook Pro is cool. It just gives you that little bit of space, whereas sometimes this stuff may have been kind of brushed away.
Hartley, is this event over last year? Like if they took everything that was announced over these last 3 days and put it into an event and put it at 1 a.m. your time, which I believe was what it was last year, would you have thought it was worth it still?
I mean, no, but I still would have preferred it because I think these updates were way bigger and we got one whole additional redesigned device over what we got last year.
Yeah.
I feel like Apple could have spent, like, if they would have done an event, let's just say they did an hour-long event, which you're like, how could you do an hour on this? I feel like they could have done, like, Excuse me. I'm choking
You
over
all
here.
right?
I'm okay.
The panic for audio listeners, the panic on his face was so real.
I genuinely don't know if I was gonna breathe. If that was my last breath there. For
This
a
is
minute.
it.
Like,
Hey,
like
if you
everything
go,
just
do we
slowed
have
down.
permission to post at least? Still?
Yeah. I
Okay,
actually would
sweet.
expect you to keep
Yeah,
it
we don't
going
we
with
do,
my
we don't
Okay.
re-record.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
amazing.
Keep the show going. I'll be dead here. Nobody will.
Okay.
It'll be fine. Just make sure you call 911 so somebody
I was gonna
comes and
say,
gets
yeah,
me.
we'll call somebody at least.
Yeah. Okay. Well, after the show, that's more important. What was I going to say? Okay. So yeah, you could do 20 minutes on the Mac Mini at least, and then maybe the MacBook Pro, iMac. We're going to talk about it here in just a second. We can. It's a few things, but it's like maybe 3 minutes there. But then 20 minutes of just highlighting all of the cool features for Apple Intelligence for the Mac. I feel like is far more interesting right now because we don't know. And then we saw some of the instances where it was really cool, and I'm like, why don't we know more about like the productivity and the different things that you have planned for your applications with Apple Intelligence for now and in the future? I felt like that could have been a good event. If you're going to talk about Apple Intelligence in every one of these videos, do more of a deep dive.
And let's not forget that we just had the iPad Mini as well, so that also could have been rolled into an event.
Yeah.
But I'm okay
I feel
with it
so
as it
bad
was.
that it didn't get its own little spot at an event. What a waste.
Okay. I was told by Hartley not to deviate from this plan very strictly.
You can deviate. You can deviate.
What's happening?
Well, good, because this is my one and only deviation at this current time. Maybe there'll be more, but right now, this is the one I'm going to give myself. John, you're an iPad Mini stan. How do you feel about the iPad Mini?
Sad.
Why
I'm
sad?
happy. I'm happy and sad. Let's start off with my sad feelings. I'm sad because, for one, Jelly Scroll is absolutely still there. It's not gone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The people that said it, they lied to me because before I got mine, they were like, "Oh, Jelly Scroll's gone." Apple says Jelly Scroll's gone. It's not. It's less dramatic, maybe, but it's definitely not gone. And also, A17 Pro, I don't know if maybe this is just mine. I don't know. Maybe the listeners or viewers, because everyone obviously 100% of you have iPad Mini because it's the best Apple product. The A17 Pro makes it kind of hot. Like,
you think it's running warm?
In a very uncomfortable way. It's not like
mine right
here.
It's
a little warm. I might have to set this down. It's a little too hot. And for all the things that I love iPad Mini for, I can't say that the new one does those things specifically any better.
Yeah.
So the good news is that they still care. All I needed was, a sign of life for iPad Mini. And not only do we have that, but then Ross Young saying we're getting an OLED one. I don't care about the OLED thing or anything else. All I need to know is that there's going to be another one, and they haven't given up on it like iPhone Mini, for example.
Hey guys, just want to take a quick minute to let you know that this episode of the podcast is sponsored by Notion. There are tons of AI tools out there these days. Even Apple has just recently come out with Apple Intelligence, but a lot of the features don't just seem useful enough to help me boost my productivity. Now, Notion and its Notion AI, however, that's something I use constantly to just get stuff done. Notion combines your notes, docs, and projects all into one space that's simple and beautifully designed. And the new Notion AI has the capabilities of multiple AI tools built in, which means you can search, generate, analyze, and chat all inside of one app. I use Notion on a daily basis for writing scripts, managing tasks across various team members, podcast planning, and so much more, which means I use Notion's suite of AI features on a daily basis as well. Nothing beats having the ability to quickly improve your writing and improve spelling and grammar with AI in just a matter of seconds. Notion AI is connected to multiple knowledge sources. It uses AI knowledge from GPT-4 and Claude to chat with you about any topic, and it can search across thousands of Notion docs in seconds to quickly answer any question. And with AI connectors, which is now in beta, Notion AI can search across Slack discussions, Google Docs, Sheets and Slides, and more tools like GitHub and Jira are coming in the future. So try Notion for free when you go to notion.com/MacRumors. That's all lowercase letters, notion.com/MacRumors to try the powerful, easy-to-use Notion AI today. And when you use our link, you're supporting our show. That's notion.com/MacRumors. Thanks, Notion, for sponsoring this episode. Great segue into the first product, which was the iMac. Do you think we're giving up on the iMac? Because this got a pretty weak update. I mean, you got some new colors.
I don't think it was weak.
I think it's pretty weak. I mean, okay.
Have you seen the new shades of colors?
Well, so that's the thing. So I in my video said that they were the same colors, which they are in theory the same color options, but they are different color shades. And that was something I honestly, truthfully did not notice right away until like you go back and actually look at it again through some of the images.
I don't
like,
think anyone can blame you.
The blue's a little bluer, the green's a little greener. Like I get it. I still don't like the pastel front, but that's just me. And so we got that. We got the finally USB-C accessories, which is the biggest part of that, which I really enjoy is finally updating that. And then you got 4 Thunderbolt 4 ports if you go with the 10-core CPU/GPU model. Other than that, Hartley, why do you think it's such a good update? Or why do you think they haven't given up?
Well, I think compared to the iMac update that we got this time last year, bear in mind that came, 18 months, 2 years after the previous update, because it went M1 to M3. They skipped M2. That M3 update, the only difference was the chip. This time round, there are new color options, there are USB-C accessories, there are 4 Thunderbolt 4 ports, there is the 12 megapixel camera, which is now the same as a studio display with desk view and with center stage, and you've got nano-texture for the first time. So that is quite a lot more general stuff.
There's a few different changes, but as a whole, I mean, you look at it, I feel like most people would be like, all right, we got an updated chip. Sure, the colors are the same. The color shades are different slightly. And they should have updated USB-C last year, so I'm not giving them a pass on that one. It's been about 3 or 4 years of virtually the same iMac with a couple of internal bumps. I will say getting a nano-texture option for those, 5% of people out there who are probably going to do that is nice. And then what was the other thing? The Thunderbolt ports. That is big. 2 Thunderbolt ports is not enough on a machine that gives you 4.
Yeah.
Like, I agree making them all that. But like, I don't know. It just seems like we're kind of just coasting along, and how long are we going to ride this for? Are they going to be at least give us a different size, a 27 inch?
I feel like with iMac, that demographic is so locked down and specific. Like I think that's a perfect Mac for most people that want a desktop computer at least. And I just don't think it was iMac's year. I think we had, a crazy update a few years ago that really kind of revitalized the iMac. This year it was the Mac Mini got the reboot. So I don't think we should at all give up on iMac. I would expect a larger one, and of course, I don't think they're done at all with trying to innovate in that lineup. I just think it was a different year this year. Is all.
Well, good, because I do love the iMac. I care for it, and I think it's a really great option for everyone, like you said. Mostly because you're getting a fantastic display and all of that power, especially with the M4 now. For what's the starting price? $14.99. Somewhere around that.
You're asking the wrong person.
I know. We're terrible with the prices, the numbers here. But I mean, that goes without saying. The point is, it's probably around that area. And that's really good because Hartley, tell me, how many monitors are in the space with Retina quality at 4.5K of 24 plus inches? How many of those exist? And for what price?
I honestly, I couldn't say. I mean, look at the studio display, which would be the nearest match. Exactly. Considering that also the iMac contains the whole computer and speakers, and everything else that you get with that, and also starts with 16 gigabytes of RAM now as well.
Yes.
Everything does, which is great.
How sad is it that we are like cheering on getting 16 gigabytes of RAM now? I'll take it. It starts at $12.99, by the way. So very good deal.
Even better. $12.99. I think $15.99 was maybe the MacBook Pro, but still, I mean, it's such a good. I just want them to not get lazy with it. Is all I'm saying, because I feel like now for the last 2 years, it's like you gave us, especially this year, some better quality of life improvements with the 12 megapixel front facing camera, center stage, desk view, all of that. By the way, who uses desk view? Would love to know that witchcraft sorcery of a feature that I don't know how it works, but it does. And so I mean, it's still a good computer, but I don't know.
I think Apple Silicon is just giving them an excuse to not try as hard.
I agree.
They have too much breathing room, I think.
But other than a larger size, what would you guys actually want from the iMac at this stage? Because if we
Don't
consider
ask that
that
question. You know,
That's
I don't
all.
know.
That's all I want. Yeah, that's
the
all I
studio
want.
display and the Mac Mini right now is that option in the lineup, effectively.
Yeah, actually,
So if we forget size, what actually do you want it to do right now?
No, I want a Pro version of it. He's right. I want a Pro version, larger size, Pro specs, M4 Pro, M4 Max configurations. That would be my computer of choice then.
Yeah, I don't have an issue at all with how iMac is laid out or who it's for. I'm just saying if I was going to get one again, it would have to be more of a Pro variant and larger if possible. I would love that the most.
27 at minimum, 32 would be amazing.
Yeah, I edited for a year. I edited FPT for a year on the M1 iMac, I think. So I mean, it was good enough then. Sure. I love that little guy. I just wish it was bigger and more powerful. That's all.
I think we'll get that next couple of years.
Next couple of years? I want it to be now.
I couldn't even complain though. If they didn't give us a Pro variant, I don't think I could complain because I don't think it's for me. Like I don't think I'm the key demographic for that computer. So I just have to sort of accept it.
And that's fine if they didn't at one point have a Pro variant for you. They had the iMac Pro, and that was for quote unquote you.
What I think you have to remember is at that time, they did not have the studio display. And the Mac Mini was in nowhere near as good of a place as it is right now. Mm-hmm. So if you want that Pro iMac, functionally, if you just buy a studio display and an M4 Pro Mac Mini, you're getting basically the same experience.
Sure. One more thing that you need to place on the desk, but the new Mac Mini is so friggin' small, you can put it wherever you want. Just tape it to the back of your screen if you want to. So let's just jump right into the Mac Mini, which was probably the star of the week, right? I mean, everybody seems to love it. It is pretty much what we expected, a Apple TV sized Mac. And the power button is the first thing I want to mention because I've seen quite a few people up in arms. So let's jump on all the clickbait rage here. And John, give me your thoughts on the power button being on, I believe it's if you're facing it, it's the back left corner, but on the bottom of the actual Mac.
Don't care. Yeah. I think, I think
that's the correct response.
Yeah. Obviously, if you are used to using your computer a certain way and you are reaching for the power button frequently, that's one thing. But I think Apple is trying to state here clearly that this thing should be left sort of perpetually on and shouldn't have any issue with that. And especially nowadays, I mean, it's 2024. Power management is much, much better. And for aesthetics, it's better. But I don't think I'm reaching down there to turn it on and off frequently. I think it's just going to be on. I don't turn my Mac Studio off, and the power button's not on the bottom.
It's on the back.
I agree.
It's also like hidden.
And really, I would even say that most of the time you only ever really use the power button to turn it on, never really to turn it off. Because unless you're actually doing like an emergency shutdown, then you're going to restart or you're just going to shut down from the system.
And this can be easily fixed. Just drill a hole in your desk, right where the power button is, have a little lever on your side of the desk that you press, and it pushes something up the hole and hits the button. It's easy to fix, everybody.
Could you show me how that works again?
It goes up into the and hits the button like that.
I'm just making sure I understood this. I want to be clear. So with the Mac Mini power button being on the bottom, we can just all agree here that it's not a big deal. But there are some people who have said, like, I just turn it off every single night. I think that's insane, but hey, you do you. So now that is a little bit of a bummer. Should that prevent you from getting a Mac Mini if you really want one? No.
But also, it's so tiny now that you can just pick it up with one hand way more easily. Like literally just in the palm of your hand, and it's not like the old Mac Mini where if that would have been, I mean, it wouldn't even say it would be annoying, but it would have been 10% more irritating.
Well, okay, so one specific scenario, Harley, that our friend Kevin, the tech ninja, Kevin Neither. I always say Nether, but it's Neither. You got to remember how to pronounce. Okay, so what he said was that this would kind of ruin some of the different mounting options that he has. But I'm thinking like most mounts that are going to be created for this will most likely be leaving you an opening for the port. I mean, unless you're sticking, but like server farms, that's the one thing I can think of where they're all just packed tightly. They're not turning it off. So I mean, it's just like. But if something was to happen to turn it on, it's going to be a real pain to where you're going to have to go back and really reach in there. But that's hopefully once every few months.
Yeah,
So
and that's exactly why this design stayed around for so long, for 14 years. And if you're not okay with it changing now, I don't know what to tell you, but like that's part of the deal. Especially if this is a new design that's going to stick around for another decade. Like now you're going to have new mounts specifically made for this. But yeah, if for people wondering why Apple waits so long to do stuff like this or major redesigns, it's because of exactly that. Mac Mini was insanely popular and the design held up for a very long time, which is insane just by itself. But also, like, a lot of server farms do use Mac Mini in this way, and they are buying them in bulk, and changing the design like this really affects those people and how they can mount them. So time to reset, start over. This is like the magnetic watch band reset for Mac Mini.
Except we never did get that magnetic watch band.
Maybe next year.
Maybe
I don't know.
next year. So let's just quickly describe the Mac Mini for those who have not seen it. And you're like, wait, what? They changed the design? Just in one simple phrase here, it's a Mac Studio, but smaller, right? I mean, we can all just kind of agree it's a smaller Mac Studio with some changes. Some of the biggest things, one thing I don't like is that there's no SD card slot on the front like the Mac Studio. Because like they definitely aim this, especially the Pro variant, at creators. They kept saying that, photographers, and then you don't put, not even just on the front, but you don't have one on the back either. Like that would have been super helpful, but at least there's 2 USB-C ports on the front and then 3 on the back. And we got Thunderbolt 5 randomly for the first time, which is crazy. Thoughts on that, guys?
Go ahead, Hartley.
I think one little curiosity about the 3 Thunderbolt ports on the back is that if you're coming from, say, an M1 or an M2 Mac Mini, that is an upgrade because right now you've only got 2 Thunderbolt ports on the back. But if you're coming from an Intel-based Mac Mini, like the 2018 model, or you're coming from the M2 Pro model, you are losing a Thunderbolt port because those had 4. So the trade-off here is that you get Thunderbolt 5 and you get the USB-C ports on the front, but you lose 1 Thunderbolt port. And also, there's no more USB-A either, which is another difference with the Mac Studio. And there are still some people, if you're the sort of person that likes a modular setup, you may actually care about losing USB-A. It's one of those
I'm
Macs
using both
where
of mine.
It kind of still makes sense to have it.
Yeah.
Every time I bring up losing USB Type A ports, people yell at me and say I'm crazy and that it should be.
I think there's no need for it on like a MacBook, but on a desktop Mac, it's, especially with the Mac Mini that is so modular in the way that Apple is imagining people to use it, it seems a little strange. But personally, if I buy one of these, I would prefer to have the 2 front-facing USB-C ports.
Yeah.
I have an M1 Mac Mini, and I would absolutely make that trade.
I think I'm a little bit biased here because I don't use SD cards anymore. So,
are you using the?
Oh, I can show you right now. We shoot on SSDs, and this is Kevin, everybody. Kevin is a loyal team member here at Front Page Tech. He holds a lot of footage all the time. We just shoot on SSDs now. So I don't care much about an SD card, but I do agree, especially there are obviously like levels and tiers to this or what you're doing professionally, right? And not everyone, I would say mostly everyone doing YouTube or creative work in general probably doesn't need a Mac Studio. And those people are going to be better served by the Mac Mini. And those people not having an SD card reader is not great. But I think I will accept it in exchange for the design we got.
Yeah, I would say an SD card slot is probably one of the more common things for those who, of all, skill levels and profession, like you're either like an amateur professional, quote unquote, somebody who's doing this for a side gig or just an amateur photographer, all the way up to those who are professionals. And I'm not quite at the level of John where I'm using SSDs, but I'm still using SD card slots, and it's important. Like, it's nice to have. It's very convenient.
Well, you don't want to use their $30 adapter?
No. In fact, I lost mine somewhere, and I've been trying to find it.
Great.
I've got too many things that I need to find. One of the good things about the Mac Mini, though, is that there's so many like really good accessories. That third-party accessory market's really nice. Satechi, not sponsored, but just the first thing that comes to mind. Their little like hub that you place. It's like perfectly, and you place it right on top, and it just looks like it's part of the Mac Mini, and it gives you all of the things that you're missing. Sorry, the wind is blowing so loud here. I thought somebody was literally coming in through the door. So yeah, I mean, you can make up for it with other things. It's just, it's nice to have it if you can get it in there.
Yeah.
What else do you guys like about the Mac Mini? Was there anything that jumped out at either of you that you're like, oh, this is really cool?
I think the thing that was interesting about the Mac Mini when we got the M2 Pro version was just how it kind of steals the limelight from the Mac Studio for a lot of creators that just don't need that sort of power. And I think that is even more pronounced now because M4 is a pretty significant jump over M2. And you've got those extra cores. You've got that more powerful neural engine now, which in years to come, as Apple Silicon evolves, will make a tangible difference. And that design and the higher amount of memory, I think you've even got a higher storage capacity now of a maximum of 8 terabytes, and all with that same starting price. So I think it's really a pretty good value proposition. It's just a shame you probably want to pair it with a studio display that's going to cost $1,800.
Yeah. And also Mac Mini is an IP that's going to be around. I still worry about Mac Studio every day. Like, okay, but are they going to give up on this at some point? And Mac Mini is not one of those. It doesn't have the same issue. Mac Mini is going to be around for another 14 years. So, and arguably that, they could just start eventually as we progress with Apple Silicon. Everything that Mac Studio is could just be put in Mac Mini at one point.
What if eventually Apple Silicon chips get so small, they do physically seem to get smaller almost every year, that you get an M5 Max option for the Mac Mini at some
Amazing.
point.
Sign me up.
And if we get there, and eventually space is freed up inside, that we do get an SD card slot, I mean, there is not really that much reason at that point to get a Mac Studio.
I mean, do you think next year we're going to get a Mac Mini, or at least the next update, you think they're going to put the SD slot back?
I don't know. I suppose it just depends on how much internal space there is. And I don't really know when they will update this. It's interesting with the M4 lineup as a whole, looking at all of these Macs, because although Apple have yet to update the MacBook Air, it looks like they are going to put the M4 in the MacBook Air sooner rather than later. And it is also coming to the Mac Studio and the Mac Pro. So the M4 will be the first time any Apple Silicon chip has come to the entire Mac lineup. So I wonder if going forward, we're going to see that with M5, M6, because Apple Silicon is kind of in that product pipeline now. And it took Apple a few years to kind of get everything to the place where it needed to be, to redesign each machine, to work out how each chip should scale. And maybe we're there now, in which case that would be really nice if we could just get these annual updates. A little bit like we've had for the MacBook Pro, which has been super reliable every single year.
Yeah.
So while you guys were talking, I was really curious about the Mac Mini and how much it would cost to max one out.
It's like 5,000 something.
So an M4 Pro Mac Mini with a 14-core CPU, 20-core GPU, 64 gigs of RAM, 8 terabytes of storage is, we're not going to do the gigabit Ethernet. Well, you know what? Let's do it. It's part of it. $46.99. Okay. So you can get
a
a
studio
Mac
display to that.
Well, let's just remove, just for the sake, we're going to go 1-to-1 here, because the Mac Studio and the Mac Mini, we've been talking about it, and they're so similar in design, and they're very similar products. You don't have a studio display coming with them, so let's just remove that for a second. So we got what did I say? $46.99, right? You can get a Mac Studio right now with an M2 Ultra chip, 24-core CPU, 60-core GPU, 64 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte of SSD storage. I did not max it. This is just the base entry level model of the Ultra for $4,000. So you can save $700. Yeah, you're not getting 7 extra terabytes of RAM, or SSD storage, but everything else
that's
is
impressive.
equal to. Terabytes of RAM. I mean, didn't we have 1 terabyte of RAM on the Mac Pro? We're getting there. So yeah, I mean, what would you buy? What would you buy there? An M2 Ultra chip with a 60-core GPU and or would you max out the Mac Mini and spend an extra $700? Granted, you're getting 8 terabytes of storage.
Yeah, I think I would still go with Mac Studio. For now, though. That can always change.
I agree. Sure.
I think
So if you're
what's more interesting
Go
is
ahead.
the entry-level Mac Studio versus the Mac Mini at this point, because that is still on M2.
You mean like the Max
so
version?
if you're looking at so if you're on if you're looking to do GPU intensive tasks, then it can still be worth getting the Mac Studio if you're going to take advantage of the extra ports. But otherwise, you have to consider that the clock speed and the cores of the M4 are significantly more advanced than that of the M2 generation. That's not even to mention the neural engine, which is about, like twice as powerful. So depending on your specific workflow, I would say unless you work with video and graphics, it probably is worth getting the Mac Mini over the entry-level Mac Studio. It's kind of cannibalized it now on account of having different chip generations.
Agree.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, and I mean, it was just kind of like a little fun thing to see, like what you could get for it, because when you're looking at an M2 Ultra, I think it's still a very good chip, even compared, obviously, to the new M4 Pro and even the Max in some circumstances. But yeah, it's just funny to see such a high-end pro-level machine be cheaper and with almost better specs in some circumstances than the new M4 Pro Mac Mini. But either way, I think if you're a creator who we've described as like somebody who's doing this, I honestly could get away with the M4 Pro entry-level model that they released. Bump up a few things for storage, but like I could easily use that every single day. I'd probably notice really no major hiccups with my workflow, and I feel like I can get everything done that I need to get done. So as someone who does this for a living all day, every day, if I'm telling you that, I would think for most people out there, you probably could get away with the same thing. If you're in a major, if you're doing something crazy and you know who you are, I don't even need to call you out, then you know that this isn't the computer for you. But if you're sitting there wondering, like, do I need the Studio or do I need the Pro? If you're wondering that and you don't know that, then you just go with the Pro. Then save yourself a bunch of money and get that Studio display that Hartley's been telling you to get.
I agree with you. And also, throughout all this, did I hear correctly that MacBook Air now starts at 16 gigs of RAM too?
I wasn't going to deviate twice because Hartley told me not to, but he actually didn't tell me not to. He just said,
I started the deviation. Hartley didn't tell me anything.
Yeah, so fun little surprise yesterday is that the MacBook Air now comes with 16 gigs, and it's basically free, right?
Yeah, with no price increase.
With no price increase.
And this
it's
also
free.
means that the higher memory tiers have also come down in price. So they have all been bumped down once. So if you want 24 gigabytes of memory in your MacBook Air, that is now way more affordable. So kind of interesting that this has happened midway through the MacBook Air's product cycle. And finally, the whole Mac lineup, no matter what Mac you go and buy in an Apple store right now, will start with at least 16 gigabytes of memory.
Yeah. And that's my MacBook of choice, by the way. I prefer MacBook Air, but of course, keep in mind, I'm doing my work on a Mac Studio, so I'm not using one machine for all of it. But if I have the choice and I have my Mac Studio in the office, then I'm always going to choose a MacBook Air as my MacBook. It's phenomenal.
That's what I've been using for travel lately because the MacBook Pro is 16 inches. It's too big. I can't do it anymore. In fact, when we got our M4 Max machine, I went 14 inches just to go back down. That is the size. If you're
but 13
traveling.
inches is the best size.
You think?
Oh, yeah, no question.
I don't mind the 14. I don't think it's that much larger, is it? I guess I haven't looked at it in a while.
No, it's not. It's just like, if you have two children, one can be your favorite, but the other one's still your son, So it's like, you're great, but you're not as good as the 13-inch son.
the 13-inch son. That's a very tiny child. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I can relate to that both as a parent and as a parent of the MacBook Pro and of all sizes. So, Hartley, which is your go-to? What are you rocking these days?
I have a 14-inch MacBook Pro, but what I can't decide is, do I go next time around for a 13-inch MacBook Air and go more portable? Do I go for a bigger display size, which I kind of feel like I need because sometimes I feel pretty constrained on the 14-inch. And so then I think, forget about portability, just go for the MacBook Pro, make that my sole device, get rid of my Mac Mini, and go all in on MacBook Pro? Or do I kind of go middle of the way here and go for 15-inch MacBook Air? I really don't know. I still do not know.
John, is your MacBook Air a 13-inch?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So mine's a 15. So I would almost say split the difference and just go 15 there.
Yeah, if we have to, yeah, that's fine.
Because you really are in the middle of that.
I know, but I also choose the best option. So
you are
which
an
one of
iPad
us is
Mini
the true
fan.
winner?
You are going smaller these days. While everything else is getting larger in life.
No.
John's going
iPad Mini should be completely away from this discussion. It is not for work or anything. It is pure joy, happiness, and fun. It should not be in the conversation. 13-inch MacBook Air, I have done work on. I have edited on. It's amazing. It's the best size for traveling. I would never let a video edit touch my iPad Mini. I don't even have Gmail on that thing.
What do you do on it?
Fun things.
Like what?
All media consumption happens on iPad Mini. The iPad Mini is usually in my bed because that's my bedtime device because there's work is done, all of that's done. It's time for fun, enjoy, and that's what iPad Mini is for. It's perfect, and it's the most pristine Apple product I have. No scratches, no dents because it lives in a comfy bed.
I like that. I like the idea of having a bedtime device. No work related, no nothing on there.
No Gmail. Try to email me, Dan. That's why I didn't get your invite in my email.
I was going to say,
on my iPad Mini.
You didn't get it. So you couldn't, the iPad Mini almost cost you being on the show. So we could talk MacBook Pro, or we can call up Sam and just have you guys argue about the iPad Mini. What do you want to do?
It's fine. I don't want to. I'd rather not talk to Sam today. I'm in a good mood.
Hartley and John, MacBook Pro. What do you think? It looks the same as what we had before. It's got a couple of upgrades. I mean, especially the base model is where it's really shining here, right? I mean, that's kind of the biggest story out of all of it, and then the M4 Max in terms of its power and capability. But I would say the base model is truly one of the higher recommendations from my end when it comes to, hey, I'm deciding on a MacBook Pro. Here's what I'm doing. It's pretty basic. Maybe a couple of things here and there where I need a little bit more power. I mean, the base model's got to be the way to go now, right?
I was completely wrong about the base model, by the way. I feel like when we started hearing rumors that there was going to be like a base model MacBook Pro, I was in the camp of, why would you have a base model of the Pro device? Like, if you're going MacBook Pro, just go all the way to MacBook Pro. I don't understand why we need to introduce a base level Pro device, but like a couple years in now, and it makes a lot of sense. So I have switched my opinion.
Hartley.
I agree. I think they're oddly popular as well in sort of corporate circles where people the Pro name just counts for a lot. And there are some customers that maybe don't understand the product line intimately, and maybe this also comes a lot from business buyers who are buying these machines in bulk, and they just think, no, Air is not going to be powerful enough for our fleet of devices. We need a MacBook Pro because it says Pro in the name.
Yeah.
And this is the device they go for. But also, you've got those extra ports. You've got the significantly nicer display. So
way nicer.
Yeah, and also you've got active cooling, so you will still get better performance out of it. So I think it does make sense. I can see a lot of people being caught between that and like a 15-inch MacBook Air. That's the only thing. But then I suppose it depends what kind of emphasis you're going for in that situation.
I really wish we got to see sales numbers still, because I'm very curious, especially for like where that base model MacBook Pro fits in after a couple years of being available.
That's true. I would like to see that too. It'd be really... If anyone wants to leak anything from Apple these days, leak that. Leak the sales numbers. That's more interesting right now. I want to know. Yeah, I mean, and also you get Space Black now for those who were like, oh, why? I don't want to spend the money of an M4 Pro or an M4 Max. Now you get that color. I love that color, and I went with silver this time. What is wrong with me? I don't know.
It is the MacBook color, though.
It just looks so nice. When you're like, take a break from it, and then you go back, you're like, I missed you.
Yeah,
like
silver is always my MacBook color.
Yeah. I mean, M4 Max, that's kind of the biggest thing for the rest of them. What's the for the rest of us? What's the consensus there? Is this I mean, it's obviously the most powerful Apple Silicon chip on the market right now.
Apple has ever shippy.
Yeah, I like that. That was from your video. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Love it. I would much rather wait and hear about the M4 Ultra if that's ever happening, because the Ultra chips are like, those are next level every time. And we didn't get M3 Ultra, did we?
No,
We did not.
Okay, so it's about time, I think, because I'm starting to feel the pain over here from the M2 Ultra.
Well, it does at least give
We
us
don't-
an idea of what to expect,
Yeah.
because the Ultra will just be a doubled up version, at
Yeah.
least, of the M4 Max. So we need to see some teardowns of that, because with M3 Max, I believe they removed the interchange, and that is why there was no Ultra variant, or at least when they developed it,
What?
there was no Ultra Fusion interchange built into that, which makes sense because they never shipped it. But I'd be very interested to see if that interchange is actually on the M4 Max.
You're really scaring
because
me
if it is,
now.
okay, then the M4 Ultra will be the same. But if it's not, then it means that the Ultra is going to be a completely different chip that has been engineered differently. So we should at least know that fairly soon.
You have worried me now
Why are you so
a
worried?
little bit. Because it could go either way. I love Hartley's optimistic view of maybe they're just re-engineering a whole separate chip that's going to be the Ultra chip. That would be amazing. But also what I'm hearing is if there's no interchange, then there might not be an Ultra chip. And that is not where I want to be in my mind.
I think it will happen. I'm fairly confident it will happen.
Do you know things?
I don't know things, but I kind of think a Mac
You look
Pro
like you know
that's
things.
only offered with a Max chip would just be weird.
Yeah. Okay.
Considering, do you remember a few years ago we were thinking that they would have like M2 Extreme, which
Yes.
would have been doubled up Ultra chips. So how
yeah.
far we would have fallen from when we
What
were
happened to
expecting
that?
like an Ultra, doubled up Ultra, go all the way down to just the Max as the absolute top tier choice.
What happened to that? I remember that all over MacRumors. Where is it?
I think it was just too expensive for them to develop. Like, no one would have bought it in the Mac Pro. It would have been so low volume. No one's buying the Mac Pro anyway. Only like 5 people in the whole world would have bought an M2 Extreme Mac Pro.
I would have.
I do miss.
Would have
the
been
Mac
one of
Pro.
those 5 people.
Yeah, yeah. Count me up. Sign me up. I think that was from what? That was from Gurman, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we're just a little bit of ways. Maybe it's still coming, just not yet.
Yeah, one can only hope, because I am missing. I want to actually get a Mac Pro again. Is that weird? Like I like
No.
the Mac Studio form factor, but I have just countless dollars of PCIe storage and just improvements and objects in my Mac Pro from my Intel machine that is just doing nothing because it's a giant paperweight. And I'm like, I want to go back to having a petabyte of
Petabyte.
storage. I don't think that's what I had. It was a lot, though. A lot of terabytes. Well, all right. Well, what was your favorite Mac of the week?
Obviously, Mac Mini.
Yeah, I mean, I figured that was a
Probably.
It's the cutest.
yeah. It is very small.
The ad for that also. I hate to like drink the Kool-Aid there, but the ad was very good for Mac Mini as well.
I don't know that I saw it. Was it
It's
in the
like
video?
a stop motion jumping out of the box, like talking.
With Nick,
the Mac
with
Mini
Nick
is
Kroll,
talking.
or
It was
at
pretty
least who
fun.
I
Yeah.
thought was Nick Kroll talking in that.
It's adorable. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I saw that. That's a good one.
What a world to live in, where now the Macintosh is the computer with value.
Yeah. I
And
kind
I'd
of
also
figured.
go as far as to say, also, what a world for the Mac to be in this position, considering where the Mac was not that long ago, where people were
Yeah.
saying, oh no, Apple's all in on iPad now, the Mac's going to die.
Yep.
Looks like
Crazy.
the other way around at this point.
Yeah,
Is
how
John,
times change.
John Ulay, I froze there for a little bit, but I guess you're back.
Am I back?
What was the? You are back, thankfully.
Okay, great.
We're wrapping up though, but I want to know what was the best feature that you guys. I mean, was there really any like feature that was announced?
I will say, I think it is very cool that nano-texture is now offered not only on the iMac, which is less impressive because it did have that before back in 2020, very briefly, but the fact that you can now get it on the MacBook Pro, because I felt like nano-texture is becoming more and more popular, especially now you can get it on the iPad Pro. There have been a lot of people that really like that display, and if you think about it, it makes more sense on a laptop where chances are you are using that in different environments, you're using it outdoors. and also it's got that brighter display for outdoors use. So if you're someone that uses your MacBook Pro like on a, I don't know, out in the field on a college campus or whatever, outdoors, that is a huge upgrade, and way bigger than the sort of the non-upgrade we basically got this time last year. So I'm going to go with nano-texture.
I think 16 gigs unified memory across the board is like the most welcomed change that affects sort of every Mac user.
I agree. I don't know that this is my favorite feature, but am I the only one who was sitting there when I was going over the video and they were announcing stuff that center stage wasn't already on the MacBook Pro? Because I thought it was already.
And it's 12 megapixels now.
Yeah.
Before, I was thinking, what was it before? It was like 0.2 of a megapixel.
Right. So I was like, wait, we didn't already have this on last year's? What am I thought center stage has been in almost everything, if not everything, for the last couple of years. That just goes to show you.
They have such a crazy way of announcing things that are 5 years too late and still making us feel like they're being generous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's insane.
Absolutely. The 16 gigs of RAM was the key point there.
I don't care. I know your Windows machine has had it forever, but I just got it and it's great. Thank you very much, Apple.
Yep. All right. Well, if anyone else has anything, well, John, I mean, I think people know where to find you, but if you'd like to plug anything that you've got upcoming, or
they shouldn't. They should just continue watching this show.
And go.
Are we going to get
listen to
another
Genius Bar.
event video next time around?
Yeah.
I don't know if I've said this publicly, but yeah, we are. The plan is doing one-upping them a week before every event.
Has anyone from Apple reached out and told you not to do this?
No.
Okay.
Has anyone from Apple reached out and told you that it was really cool?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Have you been? Are the rumors true that you will be replacing Tim Cook on the next event?
They're not. But hey, before we leave, actually, John Turnus, absolutely, definitely the next CEO. Do we agree?
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
I would think that's he's been seen a lot lately, and that just makes like more and more. He's just getting introduced in these little
But
things.
also, he's the right generation for it. He's been
Sure.
He's been inside long enough, but
And
he's
he's
also
so
not
safe.
of the same generation.
Yeah.
He's so safe. He's great in PR situations. He's like he's a next great choice. Yeah.
Whenever I think of John Turnus, this is the lasting memory I have of him, and it's always what I associate him with, which is the Pro Display XDR stand, when they used to have live events and the price tag for that stand came up. And he just had to stand there and smile through that.
He's like, yeah, $1,000 for the stand.
That's the day he earned his job.
Yeah.
That was the
the
day Tim
CEO
Cook
on
was
that day.
like, this is the man. This is
They
the
were
man who can sell
This is the
$1,000
true
stand.
test.
They were testing him, and he passed with flying colors by saying nothing. That's the way. That's how you do it, kids. All right. Well, go check out Genius Bar Podcast, Front Page Tech, all things John Prosser, and we will catch everybody in the next episode. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having
John.
me on, guys.
Yeah.
I love this show.
Great. Thank you.
But I love you guys more.